and how colleges will evaluate what that breaks down to. So the big output here is what we're talking about, 50%, as you can see in the pie chart behind me. Transcripts is going to be 50% of what colleges are looking at as far as the admissions process goes. And what does that mean? Basically, in a nutshell, it's your GPA, it's your grades. They're also going to look at the classes you took, whether you took honors, AP classes, whether you took a lot of math, things of that nature. But in a nutshell, it is your GPA. Now, on average, any students out there, how long do you spend per day working on your grades? I'm talking about school time, study time, homework time, everything. Anybody? About 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours. That's what we found students spend per day working on this component of their transcript. Now, what that means is in a 4-year high school career, you're putting in 8,000 hours on preparing this portion of your college application. It is a huge investment, and it's done over a long period of time, half of which, for many of you, is already in the books, and there's nothing you can do about. The second thing, the other category, that's about 15 to 25% of the college admissions process. And what that is your extracurricular activities, sports activities, clubs, jobs, anything you do outside of school that makes you who you are, a unique individual. Now, schools do care about that as far as admissions process. And again, that's something. How much time do you think you spend doing working on those things per week? We've actually found students spend on average 10 hours a week doing these other things. And what that translates into over 4 years is about 1,000 hours. Again, that is a really big investment of time and something that you're gonna be doing over the course of 4 years. So the third component, as you can see on the pie chart, is standardized testing. Now, this is where it gets interesting because this counts for 25 to 35% of your application. And how long do you think, on average, students are going to spend preparing for this? We've actually found students spend, on average, 10 hours total preparing for this component of your college application that counts for 25 to 35% of your application. Now, thinking about that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's a huge chunk, and there's a huge disparity as far as how much we're spending on preparing for this big chunk of our application here. Now, the good news is it actually doesn't take a lot of preparation, but it does take some. You can get effectively prepared for this test by spending maybe 50 to 60 hours. So think about that. You're spending 8,000 hours on the 50% portion. You're spending 1,000 hours on the 15 to 25% portion. You can make a large impact by spending just 50 to 60 hours on this component of your application that's going to count for 25 to 35% of your college application. That's exciting to me because it's something that you can have a huge impact on, and it's something that you don't have to do over the course of 4 years. It's something that you can get prepared for, and that's why we're doing this tonight. That's why we're here to talk about this process. So, again, what is the PSAT? It is a practice version of the SAT, PSAT. It's very obvious within the acronym, but what does that mean? Basically, it lets you know where you stand. It's going to let you know, it's a good indicator of how you may perform on an actual SAT. So for sophomores, that's the purpose. That's really the sole purpose, to get you that first initial exposure. Juniors, you actually have the opportunity to qualify potentially for the National Merit Program. And that's something I encourage you to speak with your college counselors about because there's some great benefits to qualifying for that. So for everyone, though, it's a chance to find out where you stand so that you can prepare effectively to take the actual SAT. So the PSAT itself, I'm sure you remember how long it was. It probably seemed like an eternity. In reality, it's about 2 hours and 10 minutes. So the sections are broken down between the reading comprehension, the writing, and the math, and you'll notice you alternate with small sections and have small breaks in between. That's the format, the standard format of the test. You will notice in the SAT, as I'll get into later on in my presentation, that it's actually twice as long and there's more sections, but it's the same format. So you're going to have to switch back and forth and be able to do that. So it was a good way to identify how you're going to be tested and how you need to kind of adapt and think and move back and forth. So it's a great, like I said, it's great exposure. So the next thing I want to do is what you all came here to talk about. My scores, what does it mean to me? Where do I stand? Where do I go from here? Why is this so important? So everybody pull out your section scores. It's the big score report. You'll see that it's broken down, first of all, your section scores into 3 components: the critical reading, the math, and the writing. And your scores are in the little dialogue bubbles there. And you'll see on our sample score here, the student scored 50 in the critical reading, 52 in the mathematics, and 44 in the writing skills. So what would that mean? Because each section is scored out of a total of potential 80 points. So between 20 and 80 points for a total possibility of 240 points. So for each section here, you'll see on the score report, you get a score range, and a percentile rank. And the percentile rank is important because it's going to let you know where you stand amongst your peers. So everyone that took this exact test in your grade, you're going to find out what percentile, where you rank in the system there. So that's going to let you know where you stand, and all 3 are great indicators. Okay, so the total score again, they call it the selection index. Sounds really fancy, but really what it is all 3 of your scores combined together. So you'll see that we had our student with a 146 and with a 47 percentile. What that means here is the selection index is basically the sum of your scores, like I said, but the percentile is the percent of college-bound juniors in your state did higher than. For example, the SAT score, you're going to want to add a 0. So if you want to see how you may translate this into a potential SAT score, it's pretty simple. This is worth a potential 240 points. The SAT itself is worth a potential 2,400 points. So for each section, you want to add a 0, and the total will be a 0 added. So this person potentially could have scored a 1460 on the SAT. A 1460 on the SAT. So that translates about around an average score. 1,500 is what we found the average score in the country to be, and that would be 500 in each section.